So you need to know. Again, if you assume you are in turbulence and you are not, you are going to waste a lot of your effort for nothing. So it's important for us
that you do whatever you ask others to do. I think there are non-obvious ways to lead. Just by providing a good example as a parent, a friend, a neighbor, makes it possible for other people to see better ways to do things. Leadership does not need to be a dramatic, fist in the air and trumpets blaring activity. By Scott Barrett.
And I hope you understand, especially during times of crisis, we tend to we raise our voices, isn't it? We think by shouting, your staff will hear you better. But by shouting, you become noise. You don't communicate. And I like that quote for that purpose. Let's look at the next quote. Next line, if you don't mind. Forgotten the name, I'm sorry. Yes.
If you seek to lead, invest at least 50% of your time in leading yourself, your own purpose, ethics, principles, motivation, conduct. Invest at least 20% leading those with authority over you and 15% leading your peers.
If you really are working during a times of crisis, don't spend all your time with others. 50% you are the problem. So, D. Hawk suggests 50% of your time should be spent leading yourself. Are you sure of your own purpose? Does being St. Paul's align with your purpose? Because if it doesn't, you always be in a crisis. And sometimes you are in St. Paul's for money, but you really are a pastor. So you keep wondering when you will begin your church. So when there is a crisis here, you want to jump ship. Have you sorted out your own purpose and how it aligns with what you are doing? Now, what about your ethics? And ethics is very expensive, like you'll be seeing. So are you really ready to pay the price? And what about your motivation? What makes you tick? What makes you wake up in the morning? Now, those are the things to sort out. The moment you sort out that, which is we are recommending, my friend is recommending 50%, it will be much easier to handle whatever crisis comes. And you only need then to start thinking about investing at least 20% leading those with authority over you. Ever thought about that? That people who don't know how to manage their bosses will never accomplish. Unfortunately, in normal schools of business, we don't spend a lot of time teaching people how to manage those on top. We teach them how to manage below. But the people who and I'm sorry, bosses are here, but the people who mess you up are your bosses. So if you don't know how to talk to them, you are in a lot of trouble. I still remember one of my bosses telling me, why do you copy me everything? He didn't understand that my method of managing him. Even if he is not going to read, at least he cannot deny I told him. Am I communicating? So, in those days, there were no emails. But every time I told my secretary to type, there had to be a CC or for somebody else. I talked to my boss, and because they can be sometimes unethical, when I talk with him on a serious matter, I always did something. I don't know if they have died, but there's something called file note. Professor Gure, I was very happy about our meeting, and it's good we agreed that I'm going to China. Now, I'm not writing to you. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just putting a note to the file. Now, later you say, I never told you. If you don't reply quickly and stop me, that becomes my reminder to you that we actually talked about going China. You say nothing about it. After 2 years, says, do you remember I was going to go to China? Me? I can't remember. Go to the file note. Now, that's managing your bosses. And I saw it work. Okay, sometimes they complain about copying them, but it works. Because when they really want to mess me up, I just produce a file note. I'm not suggesting you do it. I'm not just telling you about me. But you need to understand your boss and know how to manage him. If the vice chancellor does not know how to manage the council, this university will go nowhere. So he must study every member of the council, understand what makes them tick, and deal with them according to who they are. And once he manages the council, they will trust him, and the council will give you the independence to manage as management and senate. Would you agree with me? Those are the things that people don't talk about, but they are reality. Because the boss has power. You ignore him at your own risk. You can be hardworking, work as hard as you want, but you'll never achieve something until you know how to manage your boss. And that means you must understand them very, very clearly. But we are not suggesting you use all your time there. So we are suggesting use 15% of your time to manage your peers. Another big problem in management, because in management there are things, my boss will call them silos. I don't know, the word is still there. Where, and I had a Muzungu boss who used to tell me, do you know, John, things fall between stools. Because these two belongs to operations, these two belongs to marketing, but some in between are things that are for both, isn't it? Yes. They are not in operation, they are not in, now, things fall between the stools. If you don't know how to deal with your peer departments, you end up a total failure. Because they say, no, that's not mine, something else have not been done. The organization fails, and you'll be part of the failure. So you must understand how to deal with your colleagues. In fact, by the time I was retiring, we had come up with something we called SLA, Service Level Agreement. That means procurement must agree with the department they procure for a service level agreement. That is, at a time when there is no crisis, you just agree. If you make an order for a chair, by how many weeks can I make a chair? You know, in other words, you can't tell me I need a chair and expect it tomorrow morning. Now, so if you make a service level agreement, it means they cannot ask for more than you can deliver, except at an extra cost. So if without service level agreement, you end up people fighting each other. And always in management teams, every department is trying to show how the other one failed. So, but when you spend these 15 minutes, it is to understand what the other departments are doing. In which way are you a supplier to that department? In which way are you a customer to that department? And how well can you work out? What is the service level agreement? The reason it's called a service level is because if the higher the service level, the greater the costs. If the costs are going to go higher, they can say, okay. Like, for example, I was in charge of logistics. If the marketing department wants us to deliver fuel to petrol stations within a day, in other words, 12 hours notice period, I'll have to increase the number of trucks, isn't it? The moment I increase the number of trucks, each truck will get less number of loads per day. Because they get less number of loads, and the loan on the tanker is still the same. By the time I left, one tanker was about 15 million shillings. So the guy has to pay back his repair, isn't it? So I must increase the rate in order to cover the service level. And when I do that, I must pass it on to the customer, so our profit margin goes down. Can you see the relationship? So even marketing says, if that's what's going to happen, let's make it 24 hours. I do not want you to deliver within 12 hours. I want you to deliver within 24 hours. Because you have said, this is what you write, this is what it will cost you. This is what you want, this is what you... So we agree what is an acceptable service level. And basically when you work like that, the rest of the time now is to lead your team in order actually to deliver. We could spend a lot of time on this, but we do not have the time. The other thing I would say right at the introduction, it is important to differentiate authority and power. Because during a crisis, power play can create a big problem. You know, do that. Why? I said it. That's power, isn't it? Because you are trying to say the person doesn't even understand what they are doing, but because you said it, it's enough. He'll go and do it, and because he doesn't fully understand why, will he be motivated? No. But when you are using authority, your authority is to empower others, not to display power. And you will discover the team you are working with feels empowered because you are not using authority against them or over them. You are using your authority level because you have been authorized to do it. Then we could go on and talk about be clear about the organization vision. It's one of the most important things in a crisis. The reason why that is important to understand the crisis. In a crisis, you understand where we are going. Is because it allows you to shed out what's not important. When I joined the university in the 1970s, and around that same time, we started having an oil crisis. Those of you who know history. There was a problem in the Middle East. OPEC became a strong thing, and the prices. By the way, by the time I joined the oil industry, one barrel was going for about $4. Within no time, it got to $10, and it was a crisis. Now, of course, we talk about $100 per barrel. Same quantity of oil, same dollar. Now, what happened? It caused a big crisis. And because our London office still wanted us to make money, we had to do what is called BPR, Business Process Reengineering, which literally means firing people. Now, but the idea is you reorganize yourself so to achieve the same purpose with the less number of staff. And I still remember as a young person, that's 40 years ago, in charge of certain number of people. I was in charge of, I think, 6 or 7 people. After the organization, I was left with three people, I think, myself and 2 people, to do exactly, I was a business analyst, to do exactly the same things we used to do with 7. So, and of course there were no computers except a calculator. And because I'm an analyst, it meant being on my machine continuously. I would arrive home 7, 8, all kinds of times. And I realized I'll break down. The thing that came to my mind is to understand what does my section, it was not a full department, what my section exists for. The moment I understood what it exists for, I asked myself, out of the many exercises I'm doing, which one really matters? And I started stopping. Like, for example, I used to prepare a report for marketing on what is happening in the field. I used to read every newspaper to collect all market intelligence from the newspapers. I used to, all of those, and we are doing it with my team. I started thinking, what are people not reading? You prepare reports and nobody reads. So I refused to deliver one. Nobody complained. The following month, nobody complained. Within 3 months, I knew it's not needed. So in the process, now I don't have to go home at 8. I can go at 7. Are you getting the point? You look for the next thing. Because I'm able to meet my purpose, because that's what matters. What the boss wants, what the organization wants is, I deliver the purpose. For example, it was my job to project sales. Annually, we used to do a 3-year program, then a year program, then you have to revise every quarter. So it was my job to looking at the market intelligence to, as a young person, I really used to enjoy it, to project what will be there. As long as I do it and do it well, that's the main purpose of the job, isn't it? So I deliver that. These other niceties soon disappeared, and I was still promoted. Now, you need to understand, in a crisis, you must find out what really matters. And you can only know what it matters when you can answer the question, why does my department exist? What really does why, if I disappeared, what would they miss my department for? That's the thing you must do, even during a crisis. Ensure that is what you are doing. And then something that I got from Peter Senge, who my wife is a teacher, so I keep looking at her books. And one of the books he has is called Peter Senge. And he talked about the importance of continuous learning. For you to handle a new crisis, you need new information, isn't it? So you must agree, okay, lawyers are the ones who call themselves learned friends. I don't know if they keep learning, but all of us must be learned friends. If you really are to handle crisis, you must learn, you must read. In 1969, in my school, I made a commitment that I think the Lord helped me on. Because I was a young person, and I told myself I'll always be reading a book that has nothing to do with the teachers, nothing to do with my assignments, just for extra knowledge. So for the last 55 years, you can always ask me, which book I'm reading? I always read. Okay, when my children were teenagers and in boarding, they will come and find I'm still reading the same book and say, yeah, Papa, you are still reading the same book. I said, my commitment to read. I didn't say how fast. So I'm not excited, but I always read. I then did not know I will start writing. I did not know that I would start consulting. I did not know I would start whatever, but I'm always reading. What that means is, if you invite me in a consultant to do something, I can remember something I read not too long ago. So continuous learning prepares you for something. And you wonder, what is this about? What am I reading? Only 2 weeks later, a crisis to come and discover it's related with something you are learning. And these days I've learned that it's not even learning. You can do a course and even do a certificate. I was talking to some young people last Sunday I was speaking at Machakos University. And one of the people told me that the way they are using their holiday is to do courses in the internet related with their course because they are on holiday. And I thought, wow, these days you don't even have to go to a library. You can just sit in your office as long as you have internet. You can do a full course and she told me you get a certificate to prove you can put in your CV and you are learning. So what we are talking about is if you are in a crisis, that's what will really happen. When I checked the definition of turbulence, I read, a turbulent environment exists when changes are unexpected and unpredictable. And isn't that normal? The abnormal is actually normal. Changes that are unexpected and unpredictable. The key environmental issue concerns the nature of the pressure for change and the speed at which the organization must be able to respond to act. And I know you people have gone through something like that. When Matiang'i was here, he was totally unpredictable. Do you agree? One moment you are getting students and you can give them bridging courses, and one day you are told by next year there must be no bridging course. I'm sure that gave a challenge to the university. Then all of a sudden you have my old school where the chaplain used to be. By the time he left, I think they could get over 100 A's. Then all of a sudden, after Matiang'i, they dropped to 40 or 50. Now, what happens to the university? Similarly, there will be no people to pick. How do you tackle that? Those are the kind of things I'm calling sudden, and they happen. If you don't quickly act, you could put yourself in such a deep financial hole. Even trying to come out, you may never come out because you did not see the thing as it happened and act on time on it. Another person says, when you talk about turbulent times, we are talking about chaotic, disordered times characterized by conflict. A time of war is a turbulent time for a country. If your family moves and your parents get divorced, you might call that it certainly would be a turbulent time. And despite turbulence, keeping up an active external presence will still be important. And staying connected will still be important. And in addition to maintaining a perspective during the crisis and exercising good overall judgment. The environmental turbulence can occur in several factors. It can be technological turbulence, like things change suddenly. And I know when 1980s, Shell decided to become what is called paperless society. In other words, everybody from the CEO down, we were going to fire secretaries, and people should write things into the machine. So by the time I started working, like when I was in university, I did some computer science, and there was a big room we called computer where we are never allowed nearby. So now you are being told everybody will have a computer on their desk, what we call desktop computers. Laptops had not come then. And we were going to work without. So we were all sent to AIT, some computer company. A few people who were around 40 felt very old. Now I realize how young they were. But they actually resigned because they did not see how, at their age, they already know the stuff. Why must they go to school? They actually resigned because they could not cope or they did not think they can cope with looking at computers when they already are so experienced. So they went, and those who remained had to actually learn. And all of a sudden, one day I used to tell a secretary to do something, Now, I wrote to my boss direct on my machine. Now, then I asked my secretary, oh, do you remember that meeting? She never heard of it. Because I wrote direct to the boss. So within no time, we had to remove the word secretary. We were only left with administrative assistants. Because they are not necessary. They could not get a job. How do you cope with that? So I'll be asking you to talk about your own challenges. And this time I will not divide you into groups. I want you to just tell me what are the challenges, the turbulent times that you are going through now, or you have just gone through, or you are likely to go through in the future. Is my question clear? Yeah, so that my examples are not necessary. There are things you are actually going through, and they are turbulent. So we can confirm that you are leading, all of you are leaders, and you are leading during a turbulent time. Open floor. I also want to learn. My consultancy firm was recently helping a university to do their strategic plan. And I learned quite a few things, like one of the things they said is coming and has arrived is Open University. And they were debating, if Open University is cheap, you work from your bedroom, how would a university like this work? When you're asking people to come, you're asking them to pay, and the degree here and the degree in the bedroom are exactly the same, and you can get a job. Were they right in thinking about that? Yes. And that is now, because I think the president said he's launching it in September. Am I right? Yeah. So, but I only know that one, so give me the other. Yes?
I will give one related to resource mobilization. We have a change in global trends where most funders require that nowadays they don't like funding organizations in isolation. They require an organization to be in partnership with others, and creating the partnerships can be a challenge.
Why?
Sometimes the objectives are not aligned, and sometimes a partner would want to be the lead so that they are the ones who are receiving. So sometimes just coming together to...
You are much better working alone with your funding than to be told to group yourself with others of questionable motives.
Yes, it's easier, but...
And now you are saying it's a new thing, the emphasis is new.
Yes.
So you have to respond to it.
Yes.
Certainly that is turbulent. That's a very good example. Anybody else? In your department, or in the university, or in your environment? Yes.
Actually, the government funding model
It's changing.
is changing.
Can you say a few things about it and how it's likely to affect St. Paul's?
The government funding model has changed, where they're saying they're no longer going to place government students in private universities. So you find a lot of private universities that used to lean on the government-sponsored students are going to lose that financial little bit. So it's going to affect our finances moving forward.
Yeah, that would be a crisis. You are saying, when is it being implemented?
This year is September.
Oh, so by September, St. Paul's will not get any government-sponsored students. Is that what you are saying? Yes. Yeah, and you have to find a way of filling that space. But if I listened right, it sounded like if a public university are becoming private. And that's what I had the president say. He said, in the same public university, 30% will be totally free. Scholarship, 100%. And that money will not come from the government. It is the rich students that you will pay so highly, it will cover the poor students. Did you hear something like that? It then means that in public university, the school fees may be equal to private universities. And so the students are likely to ask themselves, why go to Nairobi University and not St. Paul's? Because both of them are private. Am I making sense? But if you don't think about that, you only think about the negative part. Because by making it private, it means private campuses now are attractive. Because they are both, I don't know but at least from what the president said, it's a very bad news. I can see why Mandamano. It's a very bad news to rich parents and fantastic good news to poor. Unfortunately, the poor are the ones marching against it. They are not aware that it's going to change things totally. To where poor, especially if they can use the unethical method to find them. So, but it's certainly going to be bad news. Like now, you people who are university lecturers, you will certainly be paying the highest for your children. That's what it means to start thinking about a crisis. Don't just think what will go wrong, think about what will go right. From the same thing. In Kikuyu we say, Onekehea mweneni yotaga. Now, in other words, the house is burning, and the neighbor say it's too late. We cannot, this fire is now unquestionable. So you also, at least at night and it's cold, you also start there to warm yourself. If your house going, no. That means you can benefit out of, since it's burning anyway, why don't I? So I think it will be important in a crisis, not to just see the negative, I say, out of this, what is silver lining within this cloud? That's part of how to manage a turbulent time. But that's certainly going to be turbulent, but there is also going to be benefits. Someone else? These are good ideas coming. And I'm hoping in the next 3 days, they will now be discussing DTOBC. Because basically, if they are coming, basically you need to agree what are you going to do about it as a team, as a leadership team. Somebody else? Something that has just happened, or is happening, or is likely to happen, that could cause changes within, yes.
About global warming, there's a serious scare about temperature rising beyond control. Like in summer in Europe and America, temperature is going over 14%, almost going to 45%. And that trend is still continuing. So I'm imagining, if the temperature goes 50% beyond what human beings are living in and there, what will happen? That presents...
Will the university exist?
Even human race, so that's a potential.
Okay. Yeah, we need to study more to see, is it within the next 3 years? Might the temperature rise within the next 3 years? Then during this time, we must discuss how to deal with it in the short term. Is it a longer term? What can we do in the process to handle it? A few trees planted in St. Paul's, will they stop this Kenya getting hotter? I don't know. But that's something that's wider than, according to my thinking, is wider than St. Paul's. But St. Paul's has to ask itself, what can it do? Yes, from the back.
A new one. With the shift, where work is now, as you said, in the bedroom or in the house, is a new crisis where entrepreneurs are asking for students to go for attachment, but unfortunately they want the student to be taken to those homes, and therefore it's becoming a little bit we are afraid, because if you send a girl to go do attachment in somebody's house because it is there, what is likely to happen?
Chochote chaweza kutokea. That's a real one. That's a serious one, isn't it? Because the parents will hold you responsible. So you have to ask yourself, where will students be going for internship? And these days, you are not sure a boy is safe either. You don't simply, oh no, don't say a girl said that. Boy, not in the current, even for a boy, chochote, chaweza kutokea. So it's a matter, and I don't know the answer. But the important thing is, in a crisis, whoever is the first to know the crisis is coming or has come is likely to come out less damaged than the one who learns later. Would you agree with me? Yes. And that's why it's important to think about. Once it enters your head, please use your brain to think harder of what the implications are. But that's a serious one. Yes?
I don't know. Maybe the ID fellows will assist me. There is a crisis in terms of whether the quality of the students you are going to produce will match the market based on what is happening now here. We have the artificial intelligence operating, where you give an assignment to a student, they're expecting to take 2 days, you do it in 5 minutes. So you are wondering whether this student is analyzed the work and whether he really understood, because he actually got it from ChatGPT. Therefore, I don't know whether it will actually affect our quality of our students in future.
Okay.
Maybe the IT fellows will...
So that's not a future problem, it's current.
It is current.
Ah.
Yes. So I gave out an assignment, and then I went back to check whether there was something I wanted to check. I found a student already submitted. 10 minutes.
And you doubted that it came from his head.
Yes. Now I didn't actually put keep examples in Kenyan situations. It just came.
Sorry. So, can somebody comment before? Because is that a problem in his department, or is it everywhere? So, again, during this retreat, you have to tell, how do you deal with it? I have no idea. But that's why I'm a facilitator, not a teacher. Because I have no idea exactly what you can do about that. But that's quite an issue. But I know I have been given by some of my mentees a challenge. You know, these young people, when they don't have jobs, they are working online. And he's saying, somebody gave me an assignment to do for him. Brother Nganga, is that acceptable? And I had a problem wondering, the guy needs money. And he says, you can earn as much as 20,000 per month, simply in your room, by doing other people's assignments. Now, is it ethical or not ethical? Might it be that your guy is so rich, some Koreans somewhere are doing the assignment for him? Or is it AI? AI, not other people doing. Anyway, maybe during tea time, someone will tell me what to tell that young man. Is it okay to be saying your job is to do other people's assignments, the rich ones, and you're earning well and you're happy? Anyway, that doesn't matter. The last person to give what is, of course, that this has to continue. Anything else that you think is happening now, has happened, or will happen, that's likely to affect St. Paul's?
One.
Yes?
The economic downturn at the macroeconomic level, the eroding purchasing power, and the new taxation regime.
So that your parents, or rather parents of your students in September, might not pay. Not because they are refusing, but because they have no money.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's something that you have to think about. And yet you yourself, the items you are buying are actually higher. Those are real things. There's a missionary my wife and I support, whom we pledge $1,000. And $1,000 when I started was 50,000 shillings. So, and I normally send per quarter. So when I went the other in July for this quarter, I discovered the dollar is 143. I pleaded with the bank to change it. They say that's the best they can do, 143. But you know, 143 means I'm paying not double, more than, to almost triple. And the guy, the missionary, is you getting only $1,000. And you might be asking, this family, how do they expect me to survive on the same figure for so long? What they are not aware is we are giving 3 times what we are giving, although he's getting nothing, which is the implications. And I'm sure it will affect how even your students, in one way or the other. So how do you deal with it? Now, it's time for tea. You have earned the right for a cup of tea, so just enjoy the cup. And can we agree 15 minutes? Is this acceptable? Yes. Okay, 15 minutes.
Can we appreciate our speaker by... So in Greek we say rocket